You feel it before you can name it. That quiet, steady drain on your energy. The constant second-guessing. The way you catch yourself editing your words, softening your needs, or apologizing for things that never actually went wrong. You are tired in a way that sleep does not fix. It is not just exhaustion. It is the weight of trying to make sense of something that was never meant to make sense. You have been spending your peace to keep someone else comfortable, and now you are wondering why you feel so lost inside your own life. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are not the problem. You have been navigating an emotional environment that was carefully designed to keep you off balance. The confusion you feel is not a flaw in you. It is the natural result of being placed in a dynamic where reality is shifted, accountability is avoided, and your needs are treated as negotiable. What you experienced was not a normal relationship struggle. It was an imbalance of power disguised as connection. And the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you can stop carrying the weight of a situation you never created. You did not cause this. You only responded to it with the best tools you had at the time. Now it is time to build better ones. The core of this dynamic is control. Not always loud, not always obvious, but always present. It begins with a simple psychological need in the other person, a deep, unshakable requirement for external validation and emotional regulation through someone else. When a person cannot tolerate their own discomfort, cannot sit with criticism, and cannot take responsibility without collapsing into defensiveness, they look outward for a solution. That solution becomes you. You become the place where they offload their insecurity, where they test their influence, where they measure their worth. This is not about love. It is about emotional utility. The pattern is predictable because human psychology is predictable. When someone relies on another person to stabilize their self-image, they will instinctively pull that person closer, then push them away, then pull them back again. They do this to maintain control, to keep you invested, and to ensure you never fully step out of the role they assigned you. You were asked to carry emotional weight that was never yours to carry. And because you are a person who cares, who tries to understand, who believes in working things out, you stayed. You tried to fix it with more effort, more patience, more clarity. But you cannot fix a system that requires you to disappear in order to survive. It usually starts quietly. You meet someone who seems to understand you faster than anyone else. They mirror your values, reflect your interests, and make you feel seen in a way that feels almost rare. You relax. You open up. You begin to trust. But beneath that warmth is a subtle testing phase. They are not just getting to know you, they are mapping your boundaries. They notice how you respond to small dismissals. They watch how quickly you apologize. They track how much you adjust yourself to keep things smooth. This is not conscious strategy in the criminal sense. It is a learned survival pattern. People who operate this way have spent years refining how to secure attention and avoid abandonment. They do it by offering intensity early, by creating a sense of special connection, by making you feel like you have finally found someone who gets it. Then, once the attachment forms, the tone shifts. The compliments become conditional. The attention becomes sporadic. The warmth is replaced by subtle criticism or quiet withdrawal. You feel the ground move, but you cannot point to exactly when it happened. That is by design. When reality changes in small increments, the mind adapts instead of alarms. You start adjusting your behavior to get back the version of them you first met. You work harder. You over-explain. You try to prove your worth. And slowly, your own sense of normal starts to warp. You begin to believe that if you just communicate better, if you just try harder, if you just stay calm enough, things will stabilize. But stability was never the goal. Engagement was. And as long as you are trying to earn back their approval, you are already playing inside a system that requires you to lose yourself to stay in it. Once you are invested, the dynamic moves into a new phase. The criticism becomes sharper. The blame becomes yours. Conversations that should be simple turn into circular arguments where you are suddenly defending your memory, your tone, your intentions. You find yourself apologizing for reactions to things that were never acknowledged. This is where emotional exhaustion takes root. Your mind is constantly scanning for danger, rehearsing conversations, replaying moments to find where you went wrong. The psychological mechanism here is projection and deflection. A person who cannot tolerate internal discomfort will externalize it. Instead of sitting with their own mistakes, they assign them to you. Instead of acknowledging their impact, they question your perception. They do not do this because they hate you. They do it because admitting fault threatens the fragile structure they have built around themselves. If they are wrong, the whole foundation shakes. So the reality gets rearranged. You are told you are too sensitive, too reactive, too dramatic. Your legitimate concerns are reframed as character flaws. Over time, you stop trusting your own instincts. You start filtering your thoughts through their likely reaction. You censor yourself to avoid conflict. This is not weakness. This is a survival response. The human brain adapts to unpredictable emotional environments by hyper-focusing on threat detection. You become an expert at reading micro-shifts in tone, at anticipating moods, at managing their emotional state. But you lose touch with your own. The cost of keeping the peace is your peace. And that is exactly how the trap closes. You are so busy managing the relationship that you forget you are supposed to be living your life. What keeps you in this space long after you know something is wrong is not love. It is intermittent reinforcement. This is a basic psychological principle, and it is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. When rewards are unpredictable, the brain becomes hyper-focused on chasing them. In this dynamic, the reward is the return of warmth, the rare moment of clarity, the apology that sounds sincere, the brief period where things feel normal again. Because these moments are scattered, your nervous system stays locked in anticipation. You hold on to the good moments as proof that the relationship can work, while dismissing the bad moments as temporary setbacks. This creates a cycle of hope and disappointment that drains your emotional reserves. You tell yourself that if you can just endure this phase, if you can just show enough patience, they will finally see your effort and change. But the pattern does not change, because the pattern serves a function. The inconsistency is not a bug in the system. It is the system. The push and pull keeps you emotionally invested without ever giving you enough security to relax. You are kept in a state of low-grade anxiety, which your brain eventually interprets as normal. You start measuring your worth by their willingness to engage. You start believing that leaving means giving up on love, when in reality, leaving means stepping out of a cycle that was never designed to meet your needs. The hardest part of recognizing this is admitting that the person you are trying to save is not interested in being saved. They are interested in being maintained. And as long as you keep pouring energy into a dynamic that requires your depletion, you will keep feeling the same quiet desperation. The turning point begins when you stop trying to decode their behavior and start observing it. You do not need to understand every motive. You only need to recognize the pattern. Notice how the conversations always circle back to you proving yourself. Notice how your boundaries are treated as negotiations rather than limits. Notice how your peace is constantly traded for temporary calm. Once you see it clearly, you can stop participating in the illusion. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold. It is about stepping out of the emotional current so you can finally see where you are standing. You stop reacting to every shift in tone. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You stop trying to win arguments that were never about truth. You begin to treat their behavior as data, not as a reflection of your worth. This is where clarity replaces confusion. You realize that you cannot control how someone chooses to act, but you can absolutely control how you respond to it. You start asking a different question. Not, how do I fix this? But what is this costing me? You start tracking your energy instead of tracking their moods. You notice when you feel lighter after a period of distance. You notice how your mind clears when you stop waiting for their approval. Awareness is not a single moment. It is a quiet accumulation of realizations. It is the slow return of your own voice after months of speaking in echoes. And once that voice returns, you stop begging for fairness from a system that runs on imbalance. You start protecting your peace instead of negotiating for it. Protection does not require drama. It requires consistency. It starts with simple, non-negotiable boundaries. You decide what you will no longer participate in. You decide what you will no longer tolerate. You do not announce it with anger. You enforce it with calm repetition. When they test the boundary, you do not argue. You step back. When they try to pull you into circular conversations, you end them politely and walk away. You do not owe anyone an endless chance to disrespect you. You do not owe anyone access to your time, your attention, or your emotional energy. Self-respect is not a feeling. It is a practice. It is the daily decision to treat your peace as valuable. It is choosing distance over depletion. It is choosing silence over defending yourself to someone who has already made up their mind. You will feel uncomfortable at first. Your nervous system will expect the old cycle. It will tell you to fix it, to explain yourself, to reach out and smooth things over. That is just withdrawal from a familiar pattern. Let it pass. Do not mistake anxiety for a sign that you made a mistake. It is only a sign that you are breaking a habit. Calm detachment is your strongest tool. You do not need to shut down your emotions. You only need to stop handing them over to someone who does not know how to hold them. You keep your energy. You keep your clarity. You stop trying to manage their perception of you and start managing your own well-being. This is not about becoming hard. It is about becoming steady. You stop reacting to chaos and start responding with structure. You build a life that does not revolve around anticipating their next move. You fill your time with things that restore you instead of drain you. You reconnect with people who respect your boundaries without testing them. And slowly, the noise fades. The constant scanning stops. The mental rehearsals end. You are no longer living in reaction. You are living in alignment with your own reality. Healing does not happen when you finally get the apology you deserved. It happens when you stop waiting for it. It happens when you accept that some people will never see you clearly, and that is not your failure. It is their limitation. Your peace was never meant to be collateral damage for someone else's unresolved patterns. You were not born to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You were born to live fully, to trust yourself, to move through life without constantly bracing for impact. The journey forward is not about erasing what happened. It is about integrating it. You take what you learned about your own strength. You take what you learned about your boundaries. You take what you learned about the cost of overgiving, and you use it to build something different. You will notice small shifts. You will speak more slowly because you are no longer rushing to defend yourself. You will rest without guilt because you no longer believe your worth is tied to your productivity in a relationship. You will trust your instincts again because you stopped outsourcing them to someone who distorted them. The exhaustion lifts. The confusion clears. You stop carrying the weight of a dynamic you did not create. You step into your own life with quiet confidence. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. You only need to honor what you already know. You are allowed to walk away from what drains you. You are allowed to protect your energy without apology. You are allowed to choose peace over familiarity. And when you do, you will find that the person you were trying to reach was never the one who needed saving. You were, and you already are. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice that you are still here. Notice that your mind is your own again. Move forward slowly, but move forward. You have already survived the hardest part. The rest is just you, finally choosing yourself.